Fans at the Grizzlies Salt Lake City Summer League finale were chanting overrated at G.G. Jackson. Do Damichael Cole and I agree? Plus, I think that Memphis missed an opportunity closing out Salt Lake City Summer League. I'll see if Damichael Cole agrees with me. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. It is I, Joe Mullinax, proud to be your co-host for this episode. That means Damichael Cole, the wonderful Damichael Cole, the commercial appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee, is with me as well. Very happy to have him with me and very happy to have you, dear listener, dear viewer, here with us on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies, an episode of Locked On Grizzlies that is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, Locked On Grizzlies is a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. Our YouTube growth is phenomenal, but we would love for you to take us with you on the go, right? It's hard to watch Damichael and I on your cell phone, right? If you're on the move, you're a busy person, and my head probably doesn't fit on the screen. So make sure you're subscribed on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, literally anywhere you can get an audio podcast. Subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff. Listen to the show, watch it when you're able, but continue to make us an everyday part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption. And Damichael and I truly appreciate the everydayers out there that join us each and every time an episode drops. Damichael, I promise I'm not baiting, right? I know I get accused of that a lot, especially on social media, that I'm the guy that pokes the bear. And every once in a while, that's true. I'm like the Joker. I just like to watch the world burn sometimes. But Damichael, at the Grizzlies Summer League finale in Salt Lake City, they were playing the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was another competitive game, went down to the wire. Memphis loses. I think it was Scottie Pippen Jr. that took a loosely contested shot at the buzzer, fell just short. It was another tight game. I think I said Memphis might go undefeated and they leave Salt Lake City 1-2. Whoopsie daisies. But I'm gonna explain why that's more on the Grizzlies than anything else here in a moment. G.G. Jackson had a decent stat line, but it was another night, partner, where he was doing things that make me nervous about what his role is going to be when the team is full in the fall. And I have been the person that planted the flag for G.G. Jackson, sixth man. That was me. Like, I have to accept that as my hot take at the time. I'm nervous about that take after 3 Summer League games. I know yesterday I said we need to see the full size and scope. I'm practicing discipline, partner, but he is doing things that are more along the lines of what South Carolina G.G. Jackson did, not necessarily off the court maturity issues, not talking about that. I'm talking about the way that he played at times that maybe led to him falling in a draft that he shouldn't have fallen so far in. Am I overreacting? I don't think he's overrated, but I do wish that we had seen more from him in these first couple of games of Summer League. And hopefully we'll still see that. They still got some games to go.
Yeah, and I think the second game was better.
I would agree.
I think the first game was one where, there were some notable struggles in that one, but he was more efficient. He was the only player on the whole team that could, he hit a three-pointer for the majority of the game.
That is a great point that we'll talk about later in the show.
He made 3 of the team's 5 made three-pointers, and I think the only 2 in the first half both came from G.G. Jackson. So he was solid. I think he was more selective with his shots, which led to better efficiency. Of course, getting into why we're even having the conversation about being overrated and all that, it's more so just about him as an all-around player. I don't think anybody's worried about G.G. as a scorer, but let me put it like this. You don't want G.G. Jackson. I mean, these are Hall of Famers, so I'm gonna, give him almost like a backhanded compliment with this. But you don't want G.G. Jackson to be remembered more like the Allen Iverson, Carmelo Anthony, volume scorers who, in some people's minds, had questionable winning impacts. I mean, AI did lead, a team to the NBA Finals. We saw at the same time that Carmelo went to the conference finals, and dueled it out with the Lakers. But the question is, can he impact winning basketball consistently? Can he make that extra pass? Can he draw double teams and be efficient? Scoring and passing out of him. He had no assists for the majority of this game. He's the last player in the starting lineup to get an assist, and he finished the game with 2 assists. I think both of those assists came in the fourth quarter. I don't care about seeing G.G. Jackson score in summer league. It doesn't move me because we've seen him score 30, 35 points in the NBA games, 40 plus. We haven't seen him consistently go out 5 assists back-to-back games, 8 assists night, a double-double with 12 points, 11 assists, something like that. Like, I want to see more as an all-around basketball player. I think he's showing something defensively, So overrated? No, I mean, can a 19-year-old even be overrated? Like that's
probably not.
Can you be overrated as a 19-year-old who realistically should be entering your rookie season and you basically got a head start? Like, can you even be overrated? I don't think the whole overrated thing. That's a non-starter in the conversation for me. The starter is exactly what you said. You entertained the idea of G.G. Jackson being a sixth man. I've said that, look, between him and Santi Aldama, it's felt kind of in the air. And I'm watching Santi play, and of course it's FIBA's. It's a little bit different. He just looks a little bit better. Like, from a fit standpoint, we know that I'm not going to say we know that, but I think that G.G. Jackson is the more talented player of the two. But if you're talking about the guy who I trust to play 17, 18 more minutes, the way that Taylor Jenkins likes them to play, it's probably Santi right now, which leaves G.G. Jackson on the outside looking in from a rotation standpoint. But I don't really care about that personally because it's going to be the beginning of the season. He'll have all season to earn that opportunity. We know Taylor likes to give guys, opportunities. So I don't even think you can be overrated at 19 years old after doing what he's done. But getting to your point about the summer league, I think the first game was a little bit underwhelming, but I think he did enough in the second game for me to relax on the scoring standpoint. He shot the ball well from three-point range, and he played really good defense at the point of attack. It's now just about that playmaking, that efficiency offensively, him just improving in every facet of offensive efficiency.
He has time, right? I want to stress that. And if you're going by the strict definition of being rated, he was second team all rookie NBA, if I remember correctly. That would put him, in theory, among the top 10 or so rookies in the entire National Basketball Association at the age of 19. I think he's properly rated, right? I think that is exactly where he should be at this stage. If he was to be a lottery pick, as people projected in this draft, if he had stayed and not moved up a year, then he probably would have been in the same kind of realm, right? That's a realistic possibility for him. I want to see the creation offensively. I want to see it if he's going to be what I want him to be. And right now it's not there. You mentioned the 2 assists in the fourth quarter. In fairness to him, and we'll talk more about this momentarily, who in the heck is he passing to? Right? I think that's a fair point to make.
That's a good point.
In this particular contest, right? And I'll give off my hot take on that here momentarily. But I do believe that GG has to show beyond what we know he can do, right? And you mentioned that a moment ago. We know he can score. We saw him improve as a defender. Like, if you are saying that GG Jackson is not good defensively, that's a dated take. That tells me that you didn't watch the last month and a half of Memphis Grizzlies basketball, which in fairness, lots of people didn't. But I did, and Damichael did. And I know that we agree, we're on the same page. He grew by leaps and bounds as a defensive player in those last 6 weeks or so of the regular season because he was given that opportunity that you alluded to. Is he overrated? No. I think that was foolish and kind of funny to chant at him. I like that he chanted it himself after the dunk that he did.
It's kind of a sign of respect, because you're not chanting overrated to the 13th man on the bench.
No.
Like so, it's like a GG finally, getting some of that respect, right?
Trey Jamison's not being chanted overrated at, right? Like, that's not happening to him. It happened to GG Jackson. He's not overrated, safe to say. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. Again, hit us up. We love to interact with you guys there when we're able. Do you think that we're overblowing the offensive creation stuff? Are you happy with where GG's at? I want to stress, I want to see more because I have said I want him to be the sixth man. Like if it's him versus Santi, I would like Gigi to win, to be honest with you, for a variety of reasons we can cover maybe in a future episode.
The one thing I will say, Joe, is I am expecting him to like be one of those players in Summer League, like where you say, okay, he's too good. Just go sit him down. Like
haven't seen it yet, though.
That yet. Yeah, he's been good overall. I would say like not great, but he hasn't been like, oh, he's too like. You remember Desmond Bain? It was like,
sure,
sit him down. This is too easy for him. Like,
yeah,
you want him to take that next jump.
And hopefully that'll happen as they go out to Vegas. And hopefully as they go out to Vegas, he actually plays alongside teammates that, might actually play for the Memphis Grizzlies this coming season. I'll talk about how I believe the Memphis Grizzlies missed a Salt Lake City opportunity closing out that version of Summer League coming up next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Game Time. I love going to Major League Baseball games in the summer. I know Damichael does as well. His beloved Atlanta Braves gag, my beloved Washington Nationals. Woohoo! Hopefully they're going to be selling at the deadline, and they'll be closer to contention in the years to come. Obviously, the Braves very much in their contention window. Now, regardless of where your team's at in terms of trying for a championship, taking yourself and your family and friends out to the ball game is a great way to make memories this summer. Use the Game Time app to do it. You can prioritize with last-minute deals, saving up to 60%, buying last minute for not just MLB games, but any concert, comedy, theater event. And you can save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats for you. They provide panoramic views from your seat in the app before you buy it, and they also have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, I get frustrated with something that the Memphis Grizzlies do all the time, and it's my fault for being mad about it. Stick around. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, joined by my co-host, Damichael Cole, the commercial appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. He is the award-winning Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for that publication. I've been covering the Grizzlies for over a decade in a variety of spots. You've come to the right place for Memphis Grizzlies content. Hopefully you'll stick around and become an everydayer. Every time an episode drops, you'll be with us here on Locked On Grizzlies. Damichael, I feel like I'm going to sound a bit like a hypocrite here, and I apologize in advance for this. I'm trying to figure out the right way to say it, right? How often in the course of our relationship, how often have I said that I don't care about Summer League? Pretty consistently, right?
Yeah, that's your MO a little bit. Yeah,
kind of my brand to an extent, right? I'm going to contradict that a bit and say that the way that the Grizzlies treated the Jake LaRavia and Zach Edey injuries, and for those of you that are listening and not on YouTube, I hope you could have felt the air quotes that I provided to injuries. Minor ailments. Drew Hill of the Daily Memphian, want to make sure we give him proper credit. He said that it was very minor, nothing that's going to carry on. Decent chance that if this was an actual NBA regular season game, those guys would have played. It's Summer League. Doesn't seem like they particularly cared. They even posted a picture on their own social media, and obviously a cardinal rule of social media is don't yell at the social media account. don't yell at Devin. That's not his fault. Posting a picture of Zach Edey walking out of the hotel, no walking boot, no crutches, totally fine, not playing in the basketball game. We just spent an entire segment being critical of Gigi Jackson and how he's not passing enough, not creating offense enough for others. Who in the heck was he supposed to create offense for? No Jalen Wells, no Cam Spencer, understandably, right? Those
guys, shooters,
they played 2 games in a row, right? So that makes more sense to me, but you didn't have your shooters on the floor. No Jake LaRavia, the one guy, aside from Edey maybe, that looks like, okay, he's too good for Summer League. And then no Edey. So only Scottie Pippen Jr., if I'm recalling correctly, was on the floor alongside Gigi for this one that actually will play consistently with the Grizzlies. Maybe Trey Jemison will be up there a little bit, but I think you and I will agree he's the least likely of all of them at this stage. Yeah. Give or take an injury. I think Cam Spencer's kind of moved ahead of Jemison, at least for me he has. So anyway, what am I saying? I am saying that we expect a lot out of Gigi Jackson. We expect contributors. it felt like an opportunity for them to give a chance for more chemistry and continuity being developed, and they just kicked it to the curb. Now, again, I'm not saying that I should be surprised. I've covered this team for a while. This is most certainly their MO. It's not surprising in the least that they sat him out. But you can't have it both ways, right? You can't say that something matters and it's important and you want to watch this guy play. Zach Edey was pulled out of Team Canada for this.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that he wouldn't be playing against the United States on Wednesday night in that exhibition game that they were going to have? I have a feeling that Edey would have suited up for that one. Okay, so I'm just struggling, Damichael, with a team that is still, as of this recording, quadrupling down on youth and not allowing them to have the live rep opportunity. That better have been one heck of a sore ankle, at least in my opinion. But feel free to tell me I'm overreacting, because I probably am.
Yeah, Joe, I'm going to use one of your other points, and that was you talked about the idea of the sample size. But before I get to that, I want to mention something else that you just said. You said that two guys were probably the most, the two guys who look like they are better than Summer League. And the two names that you said were Zach Edey and Jake LaRavia.
Were the two that sat out.
They're the two that sat out. I don't think that – I mean, Gigi played. I think it's – for one, I think the Vegas games are going to matter a little bit more. As you talked about it, the idea that when you get to Vegas, there's only one back-to-back. So the games, like, they'll play on the 12th, and then they'll have 2 days off before the next game on the 15th. So there's space in between the games, which should, be health provided. Like, the guys should be able to, play at least 3 out of the 4 scheduled games in Vegas, and possibly 4 out of 5, depending on how far they go in tournaments or whatever the case may be. So I'm not taking too much stock into it, because quite frankly, like, from a competitive standpoint, the Salt Lake City games matter even less than the Las Vegas games, even though the Las Vegas games, won't be remembered forever, but they matter more than the Salt Lake City games. And then on top of that, again, we did see Edey leave the game and, need his ankle worked on. And it was only 1 day off in between. I'm sure, again, if it was something serious or whatever the case may be, if it was a serious game, like he would have played. But you can afford, especially those two guys. If it wasn't Edey and LaRavia, I'd probably lean more in your direction. Say, okay, yeah, this is good reps for those guys. But, just to go even more bold, like, we like the entertainment standpoint of Zach Edey playing Summer League. I don't need to see anything from him else from Summer League. I don't need to see anything else. I think that first game, we saw him play physical basketball, and I'll give you a chance to respond to this, Joe. But we saw him play physical basketball against Walker Kessler, which is an NBA center who, he came off the bench a lot last season, but he started some games and he's really impacted, starting basketball in the NBA level. And we saw Zach Edey have 14, 15. And, of course, they're going to be different personnels. They're going to be teams with different type of guards that are going to attack him and whatnot. But I've seen enough in that game to say, if he doesn't play another game in Summer League, I'm not over here thinking, he missed some great developmental opportunity. And same thing with Jake LaRavia. Jake LaRavia's in his 3rd year. That first game felt like he was just out there cruising. Like, the game just was coming to him. He wasn't out there, doing too much or anything like that. I'm not, if he doesn't play another game, oh, well. It's different with Gigi. I want to see Gigi out there, and I want to see Gigi look like a better passer. I want to see Cam, Spencer. I want to see Jalen Wells out there. Scottie Pippen Jr., it's good to see him out there and just continue to, get those reps as a point guard and kind of learning the spots of certain players. And for anything, I think the idea of seeing Zach Edey on the floor would give us a better look into how players will play off of him, more so than his individual talent. I will say that. Like, the idea that he creates open shots, which most of these guys, when they get to the NBA, they're going to be taking open shots, or the idea that, what his screens could do for Scottie Pippen Jr., and then getting to see more of that, and then kind of envisioning John Morant in a similar position. I think if you want to take it a step further from an advanced standpoint, that would be good to see. But from an individual development standpoint, I'm not tripping over the idea that Zach Edey or, Jake LaRavia aren't on the floor. I know entertainment-wise, it'd be, look, I want to watch him, But if this is a long-term Grizzlies investment, like you got to think about it. If anything happens to Zach Edey, that kind of alters a lot of the season.
It's sour grapes, probably, right? You got the fun game out of Salt Lake City, and I didn't get a chance I didn't get a chance to talk
you
about it.
You get Vegas. Vegas will be way better.
Vegas is coming. That is true. Let us know in the comments how you're feeling. Again, I want to stress, I agree with you, Damichael. It's not a individual development piece. It's exactly what you said there at the end. It's the fact, how are you going to play off of this guy, especially someone like GG Jackson? For me, it's hard to say, hey, GG, pass the ball more. And then when he's looking around and there's no one for him to pass the ball to, again, I have flashbacks to April 5th and the end of the regular season. And he's going to score 40 points because there's no one else for him to pass to. He's not having the chance to develop an important skill going into the regular season, at least in my opinion. But I understand and agree with what you're saying. That's all well and good there, to be sure. So let us know in the comments again, how are you feeling about Edey sitting out? Obviously, health is the main priority. Kind of a quick turnaround going in. I think their opening game is Friday. Is that correct?
Yeah, Friday.
Yeah, they play Friday.
They get a day off, and they're right.
Yeah, and there's travel. Obviously, Salt Lake City isn't that far from Vegas, but there's a travel aspect. I can see it. It's just disappointing, especially for somebody like a GG Jackson. It's hard for me to say pass the ball more, and then who's he passing it to? I think that's a fair thing to point out. Make sure that after you are done listening to and watching Locked On Grizzlies, you are checking out Locked On Sports Today. First of its kind, 24/7 streaming service over on YouTube. It's also part of the Amazon Fire free TV channels app. All the great content of the news of the day from Locked On Podcast Network. Great shows like Locked On Grizzlies across Major League Baseball, hockey, obviously the NBA networks, NFL, college sports, plus the great league shows like Locked On NBA, Locked On College Sports, all those sorts of things. Check out Locked On Sports Today. Make that your first listen after your first listen, that is Locked On Grizzlies. When we come back, we'll be chatting about Luke Kennard, still not a member of the Memphis Grizzlies. Is that cause for concern? Stick with us. Welcome back to this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, joined by my co-host Damichael Cole, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. It's been a fun episode, making sure people understand GG Jackson is not overrated. And it's also difficult, at least in my opinion, for him to work on his passing game when he's passing to guys that at their best will be on the Memphis Hustle next season. But again, that's just kind of a flashback to where we were in early April with this team. We're going to close out with somebody who hopefully will be on the Grizzlies roster. That is Luke Kennard. Still no ground being made up. No news, not necessarily being good news. Where are we at? Again, I don't expect you necessarily to have any updates, partner, but just your thought process. I had talked about in the past, maybe they're exploring a trade. I had a couple of people on social media on X tweet at me or post at me. That just sounds dumb to say out loud, and say something along the lines of like maybe they're checking to see if Cam Spencer can be a Luke Kennard replacement. I don't know that I agree with that. I think Luke Kennard has earned the ability to say he's better than Cam Spencer at this point. But I'm also, what in the world is leading to this taking the time that it's taking? If you were GM Cole, I know you like to kind of take it from the perspective of Memphis. Why are they dragging their feet on this, in your opinion?
Well, one, you got to start with the market for the two guard out there. The one position two guard market isn't moving fast. It's not just Luke Kennard. I mean, we saw the Buddy Hield thing happen, but I think that was more reactionary to Golden State, losing Klay Thompson. But other than that, Gary Trent Jr., is another decent two guard out there who shot the three-pointer particularly well throughout his career, but not a lot of traction so far for him as well. So the one position two guard, the guys who, you can put them at the three, but they're going to be undersized, and the guys who aren't, point guards as well, kind of stuck right now. And that's where I think Luke Kennard and Gary Trent kind of grayed out. So the market is kind of moving a little bit slow. But with all that being said, it's a simple situation where I believe no news is good news. It's that simple. If there are any news out there right now, it's good. It's good for the Grizzlies because, again, one thing that I do know is they have been, continuing to work things out on that end. And I have not heard that, talks broken down or Luke is leaning anywhere else or anything like that. So as long as we're not hearing anything like that, I'm still going to be led to believe that Luke Kennard will eventually return to the Memphis Grizzlies. How that looks and everything, when you talk about the GM Cole part, here's the thing. I think since the Grizzlies are so close to the first apron and you have the ability to stay under the first apron and get a couple moves done, you do that. Like I think, with Luke Kennard right now, I think if he's making $12 million a year, that puts you in the first apron. Anything above $12 million a year will put you into the first apron. But if you tell me, okay, you could theoretically do 3 for 30, 3 years, $30 million. Now you're right there on the edge, and you still want to go out and get, a veteran minimum big, or whatever the case may be, or another guard. If you want to go make one more move, you got a $6 million salary with Zaire Williams, $6 million salary with John Conchar that you could shed. That'll give you a little bit more room, and then you make that move, and you go into the season with a solid roster that's going to be one of the best in the Western Conference, and you can win without the limitations of the first apron, without being, a lot of teams have been hard capped now. A lot of teams are in the second apron, and they're going to feel the impact of that and whatnot. But I think this is important to point out because as the trade deadline gets here, there are going to be certain players that other teams who are in the first apron or who are in the second apron don't have access to because of those limitations. Whereas a team like the Grizzlies, if they're not in the first apron or the second apron, they'll be in position, to make a big swing at the trade deadline if they choose to. And it'll be a move that other teams aren't capable of making. And I think to have that flexibility is a good thing. So I'm not concerned, Joe. Really not concerned as it pertains to Luke Kennard at this point. The approach here is no news. It's good news. I have not heard anything about other teams kind of trying to overtake the Grizzlies or anything like that. I'm still being led to believe that eventually he ends up in Memphis. Just at this point, we're just trying to see what that looks like.
Buddy Hield, I believe, signed a 2-year, $21 million contract or 2-year, $19 million, something like that.
Yeah. So
I feel like that's good for Luke Kennard because you mentioned Gary Trent Jr. over the course of his career being a good three-point shooter. Luke Kennard's better, but I also think it's fair to say Gary Trent Jr. may be a little more of a creator with the ball in his hands, maybe a little bit better of a point of attack defender. To me, that Buddy Hield contract is intriguing. And you mentioned 3 years, $30 million. If Memphis structures that the right way, and we got word that television deal, maybe that's something we talk about on tomorrow's show, that television deal is final now, I feel like the cap's going to jump up here soon.
Oh, so yeah. If it's going to jump to the max. Yeah.
Yeah. So they can negotiate with Kennard, get under that first apron, plus being able to sign outright without, they can waive somebody like you alluded to, bring in a veteran minimum big, and they can structure the deal in a way where they can take advantage of that likely increasing cap. To me, they've been waiting for additional information, right? Maybe it's not just the television deal. Maybe it is what Gary Trent Jr. gets. Maybe they were waiting for the Buddy Hield deal as a starting point. Whatever the case might be, it seems like it's more so, okay, we're going to settle at this. Here's how we're going to go about our business, and they're going to close up shop around the offer here soon. I think it's more so finding that way to make it most advantageous for the team to be able to get better, not just now, but at the trade deadline, like you said.
Yeah, great point on Buddy Hield, too. I think that number is a number that's a ballpark number, for how this thing and when this thing will get done. Because, look, as much as I think, he's a good, Luke Kennard is a good player and he's an asset to this team, $14.8 million was a very high number for a guy who, it'd be different if he was a guy you could say, we could close games out with John Morant, Desmond Bane, Luke Kennard. That would be a $14.8 million guy, like a guy who comes off the bench and he can play the three and guard guys and stuff. But that's not his game. It's more of, we saw in the playoffs, I keep going back to this against the Los Angeles Lakers, where a lot of the fans were saying, well, why not just throw in Luke Kennard over Dylan Brooks? And Taylor Jenkins is saying, well, that's because LeBron James is going to attack him. Paraphrasing. And he's already going at Ja. And, he didn't want to have multiple guys on the floor that they didn't feel comfortable switching LeBron James on. There are certain limitations to his game as why the things haven't gotten done. But I think the three-point shooting, and look, Cam Spencer, Jalen Wells, they can shoot 50% in Las Vegas from three-point range. Cam Spencer can make 6 3-pointers per game the rest of Las Vegas. It has no bearing on the Luke Kennard situation.
Nor should it, because Luke Kennard has done it at the professional level for a very long time. It's good to hear you say that. I kind of thought that as well, but it's good to hear that we're on the same page there. Be patient with Luke Kennard. It sounds like he will be back in Beale Street Blue here before we know it. Thank you so much for being with us on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. It is much appreciated. When we come back for our Friday episode, it's going to be Viva Las Vegas, partner. The Grizzlies will have a Friday night Las Vegas game. It's going to be wonderful to hopefully, fingers crossed, watch Zach Edey play and see how he does and all those sorts of things.
Sounds like you're not holding your breath over there.
No, I'm just being salty. I think that's a fair way to look at it. But we can talk about previewing the Vegas version of Summer League, maybe take a grander look at the NBA at large, other rookies we're interested in watching, obviously the Grizzlies schedule overall, taking us into the weekend. It's going to be a fun show.
Yeah. Sucks we won't get any Devin Carter, on
that
that's
first
true.
Game.
Yeah. The son of Anthony Carter, Grizzlies assistant, and he was a prospect who was getting a little buzz, as we got down the stretch before the draft. But yeah, he's out for Summer League, so won't see him. But looking forward to kind of talking about some of these prospects as well as the Grizzlies prospects of potentially even winning this thing. Like they'll have a good shot.
Fingers crossed. They just have to actually play, right? Jason March, friend of old Joe Mullinax podcasting, right? Coach March. No, it's probably not his decision. But anyway,
the higher-ups are on that one for sure.
Yeah. Coach March is saying, yep, that sounds good, which is probably what he should be saying. Thank you again so much for hanging out with us on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe, wherever you get podcasts. YouTube is a great way to catch us if you're sitting at a computer hanging out. But take us with you on the go. Subscribe on Spotify. Subscribe on Apple. Subscribe on Amazon. Damichael and I are mobile. Great to listen to when you're doing yard work, in the car, whatever the case might be. Make sure you're subscribing to the audio podcast when you're not able to check out the YouTube version of the show. You want to be able to have as many options as you can to be an everydayer with us here at Locked On Grizzlies. Every time an episode drops, hang out with Damichael and I. For Damichael, I'm Joe. We'll catch you on Friday. Looking forward to another fun episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Thank you 1,000 times for making us a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption. Have a great rest of your day. We'll catch you tomorrow.